So we've all seen videos like these.
About the Biafran wars and Biafrans, which is Igbos. Why did you implement so much lies into the documentaries, and why is the documentary full of cut and joins, like cut and join stories which are not true? So good, I've seen part of the documentaries and I am here to analyze and tell the truth concerning the lies that were told in the documentary. Now, according to the documentaries, the Igbo soldiers, the Biafran soldiers, they were rebellious, they were rebels. No, my uncles, my grandparents.
The BBC released a documentary on the Nigerian Civil War, or as I like to call it, the Biafran War, and titled it Surviving Biafra. Now, this video has gained over 139,000 views since its release, and a lot of Nigerians are not happy. Some of them have gone on social media to express their grievances, concerns, and anger, especially Igbo people. Let's get into it. Now, for those of you that do not know, the Biafran War or the Nigerian Civil War was a war between the Nigerian government and the Biafran people, which is dominated by the Igbo people, of course. Now, this war started in July 6th, 1967 and ended in January 10th, 1970 for over 30 months. The Biafran War was one of the most devastating and difficult times in Nigerian history. It's very difficult to talk about this war logically, especially because of all the emotion and sensitivity that has to do with it, and how it traumatized Igbo people especially, and how it affected Igbo people especially, all the casualties that the Igbo people suffered and faced during the war. And having done my research, I'm going to explain what actually caused the Biafran War. Now, simply put, the Biafran War was caused by ethnic rivalry, and as much as you might want to dispute that, that is in fact the truth. And let me take you guys down memory lane a bit. So in January 1966, or a little while after Nigeria had gained independence, there was a coup in 1996, and the leader of this coup was an Igbo man named General Chukuma Kaduna Nzogu, and the people that also carried out this coup alongside him some of them were actually Igbo people too. And now these people took over, and a lot of northern leaders died during that coup. The likes of Tafawa Balewa, Amadu Bello, and some other westerners and northerners too were killed during that war. And this angered the northerners, that's Hausa people. It angered them so much because they felt that it was a selective killing. Now, General Agu Ironsi, which is also an Igbo man, took over as head of state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And what did he do when he took over? He did not try any of these people carried out this coup, rather they were detained. And that even angered the northerners. That angered the northerners even more. There was also some talk of him promoting some officers, about 20 officers, to lieutenant colonels, and some of them were actually Igbo men. So it's a plethora of factors that led to this war, but one of them is Decree 34. Now, for those of you that do not know what Decree 34 is, Decree 34 is actually a decree that was implemented in 1966. Yes, that was created to it was a decree that was created to abolish all the regions in Nigeria, that's the northern region, southern region, and create a unitary government. Now, this also made the northerners a bit scared because they felt like this was just a ploy so the Igbo people can come over and take over the northern region of Nigeria. For the counter coup by General Yakubu Gowon, there was some rioting in some parts of northern Nigeria, in some cities and towns in northern Nigeria, and then they were killing, maiming a lot of Igbo people. During this killing, that was when the counter coup took place. The counter coup was led by Yakubu Gowon, and General Agu Ironsi was killed. Yakubu Gowon took over as head of state in Nigeria. Now, because of the killings of various Igbo people across different parts of the country, the head or the leader of the eastern region of Nigeria, Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu, had ordered that all the Easterners, return back home to the eastern region for their safety and security. On May 27th, 1967, they had established 12 states in the country. Now, following this, Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu, the leader of the eastern region of Nigeria, had declared the Republic of Biafra on May 30th, 1967. This was basically a challenge to the federal government, and they declared a war against secessionist Biafra, and that was how the war started. To get into why majority of Nigerians are angry with the BBC, why they are calling the BBC out, why they are saying that the BBC is spreading false news about the Biafran War, about Igbo history. Now, the first reason, and I'm seeing this discourse a lot on Twitter, people are saying that the choice of the director, or the ethnicity or tribe of the director, is very wrong. Now, the director of this documentary is Meji Alabi, and as the name implies, he is a Yoruba man, of course. And they feel like it is rather very wrong to hire a Yoruba man, to tell a story that is deeply sensitive and painful and traumatizing to the Igbo people. So rather, what they are saying is that they'd rather prefer an Igbo man tell the story than a Yoruba man, because that can cause certain biases. And while that is true, there is something called filmmaker bias. He's not the only one on the project. There are lots of people on the project. So if at all he was going to intentionally omit some things just so he can push a certain narrative or prove a point, I'm sure other people will come in and say, okay, maybe we should do it like this. I watched the documentary yesterday, and I felt it, like I felt very emotional. I almost cried. In fact, I cried at some point. I was watching the children that were sick and dying, and it was a very painful sight to watch. I put up some videos on the screen, but because of copyright issues, I'm not going to do that. So if you want to watch it, you got to go to their channel and watch it. So yeah, I watched the documentary, and from my perspective, I do not think that they downplayed the sufferings of the Igbo people in the Biafran War. It was very obvious that the Igbo people suffered such great casualties during the war. In fact, the Igbo people actually suffered more, I'd argue, more than any other person during this war, because these people had they killed so many of them, so many innocent Igbo people that did not do anything. There was a food blockade, so there was no food, and they were literally starving. Humanitarian aid had to come in so they could even give them food, and the food would not even go around when they bring the food. Some of them would start sharing it to their brothers and sisters. Some of them would be selling the food. It was horrible. Millions of people. I think there was an estimate of about 500,000 to 3 million people that died during that time, and more than half of them were children. Of course, Igbo children, because they were the ones that were affected. These would have been people that would have been doctors, leaders, mothers, fathers, grandparents. The sufferings of Biafra were not downplayed. And if you're going to go down the route of, how would you hire a Yoruba director, then we're just doing the same thing all over again, which is what caused the war in the first place, which is tribalism. Now, another thing that a lot of people are not very happy about is the historical omissions in the documentary. Now, some people said that there were omissions like they intentionally did not mention things like the Asaba massacre, the Aburi Accord, the British food blockade, and all these things. And that sort of drove a narrative that Nigeria, and there was some kind of neutrality between Biafra and Nigeria, and they had equal footing basically. And I saw the whole discourse on the Asaba massacre. I had to go and do a whole video on the Asaba massacre, and I got to find out that the Asaba massacre was it took place between October 5th to October 7th, 1967, and it was perpetrated by the military, the army, the Nigerian army, of course. So it was a selective targeting and killing of people in Asaba, which is predominantly made up of Igbo people. So they they took these people and they killed them, innocent people. They killed these people. I feel like the army did a lot of evil things during this time, like the Nigerian. This was omitted from the documentary. Another thing that was not talked about at all, because I watched the documentary from the beginning to the end, was the Aburi Accord. I said the Aburi Accord was an agreement that was had in Aburi, Ghana, where the military leaders had gathered and they decided to establish a confederation in Nigeria. But when it was brought up to go on in Lagos, he refused to implement it. I'd say I genuinely do not think that there was an intentional omission of those things to downplay the to make it seem as though Nigeria and Biafra were kind of like, oh, it's one, it's 1-1, it's not 1-0, that kind of thing. I think that it was as a result of time and editing constraints. And what do I mean by time and editing constraints? In a lot of documentaries, some of these filmmakers like to condense everything into like 90 minutes. That's documentary was over an hour long. It was freaking long. And with the whole story of Biafra, I don't think you can bottle everything up into one single video. So filmmakers tend to cherry pick certain stories, certain aspects, and cut and join just so they can make everything fit in. So a lot of the times they're not always going to tell the entire story. They might actually omit some details, and it's not because they had an ulterior motive behind omitting those details, right? Another thing that got Nigerians upset was the title of the documentary. Now, the documentary was titled Surviving Biafra, and they feel like the title kind of softens the genocide that took place in Nigeria at the time. Now, what do I think? I have no idea, because I personally think that the title was not that bad. I mean, what would you have preferred? I really don't see what is so wrong about the title, honestly. I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not wrong. And can I just say that documentaries are not required or guaranteed to be 100% accurate. And yes, you're telling a story of something that actually happened, it was real, but it's not always 100% accurate. And there are lots of factors that can lead to it not being so authentic. This documentary, for instance, they had to get war veterans and people that were alive as at that time so they could tell the story. So it was from these people's perspectives that we're able to watch that documentary. So of course there's going to be bias. Of course there's going to be things that they omit and things that they forget or didn't mention. Things like that can actually affect the overall authenticity and accuracy of a documentary. Another thing I'd like to mention is the fact that this is what we're talking about, happened in 1967. Most of the people from that time are either dead or they are in their 60s and 70s. So these people are obviously senior citizens. They're obviously very old, and as a result, their memory will be hampered. They won't be able to remember everything word for word. They won't be able to give you everything in detail because they are old, but they can't remember everything again now. Come on. And so, of course, you're not going to get everything in detail. And then most of them have actually told their children and their children's children. That's why it's very difficult to have conversations about the Biafran War, because it was a very sensitive time for not just Nigerians, but even especially for Igbo people, because a lot of Igbo people died during that time. A lot of them were kicked out of their houses and they had so many properties destroyed. A lot of them were maimed, were killed. Some of them didn't have arms and legs. Some of them were not able to communicate with their families anymore. Some of them lost their parents. All these things. And that's why you can't objectively tell the story, because by the time you say this one person is like, that's not what happened. I know it just creates like a problem. Another thing that stood out to me when I watched the documentary was the interview with the BBC journalist that covered the war. As at that time, he's very old now, but you could see videos of him. And he said something. He said that our reportage or our reporting was largely influenced by the British. Now, if BBC had an ulterior motive, I wonder why they would add that part. Think about it. Meaning that they were not reporting objectively, they were cutting some parts, they were downplaying some parts, they were completely removing some parts. It was not authentic reportage. Why? So they could please the British, because they were under British influence. They actually had an ulterior motive. I remember that this documentary is being produced by the BBC. Why was that part included? I cried when I watched that interview. I was so very emotional when I watched it, because all the killings and the deaths and everything, it really touched me. Like all those kids that died. This is the part that annoys me. This is the part that infuriates me, because I am genuinely so angry that this had to happen. There were countries that participated in this war. not directly, of course, but indirectly. For instance, Britain was supporting Nigeria, they were sending them ammunition, they were sending them weaponry, all of these things. Biafra was supported by Russia, also supported Nigeria, the Nigerian army. Biafra was supported by France and some other countries. And what were they doing? They were exchanging palm because the region was rich in palm. They were exchanging palm for weaponry, for ammunition, for relief, for moral support, for all of these things. They were basically funding this war. And our brothers and sisters were dying. They were being killed by each other. Now, one of the people that got in, one of the interviewees said something that taught me towards the end of this video. He said that Nigeria was a former colony of Britain. Nigeria and Britain had friendly ties and all of these things. If Britain wanted to intervene in that war, they would have stopped that war. But instead, they were sponsoring the war indirectly because of their selfish interests. They sponsored these wars. People were dying. People were getting maimed, killed. Children were dying. People were sponsoring wars. And part of the reason why they sponsored these wars is because Nigeria, as at that time, was one of the top producers of oil in the world. So of course they'd support them. It just goes to show one thing, and that is that these people do not care about you. They do not care. You guys can kill yourselves for all they care. They just want your resources. That's it. And they were supporting these wars. Nigeria is a third world country. We had countries like Britain, France, Russia. If these countries had intervened, there would have been peace. But if those countries had intervened, the war wouldn't have lasted for as long as it did. 30 months. That's more than 2 years. Now, towards the end of the documentary, we found out that there was a blockade and Biafra could no longer trade some of these foreign countries for weapons, ammunitions. And when they no longer had ammunitions, they began to use local weapons to fight the war. And because of the harmful effects of the war, the lands, the farmlands, everything was laid waste, and there was hunger. And even the little food that they had skyrocketed in price. So a lot of people were hungry, a lot of people were dying, and it was just that bad. And who suffered it? The Biafrans, of course, the Igbos. Now, there's this argument I want to debunk really quickly that I saw online. Someone was saying, "When they're not rebels, we are not rebels. We were fighting for survival." Of course, they were fighting for survival. They were rebels. Like, if you're going to look at it logically, these people were rebels. Who is a rebel? A rebel is a person that fights against the government of their country. So they were in fact rebels. But a lot of the times when we have conversations like this, we get so emotional and we get so angry, and it just like sometimes you just gotta be logical. I've been in like public spaces, in buses with people that got into fights, like verbal arguments, because of the Biafran War and what caused it, what led to it. There's always going to be speculation, there's always going to be different stories, different sides. Everybody had a different story. On January 10th, 1970, Lieutenant Colonel Philip F. Young had announced that the Republic of Biafra no longer existed, or had ceased to exist. And that was just 2 days after Ojukwu fled the country. And I don't think that Nigerians or Igbos especially will ever be able to recover from the casualties and the pains that they suffered during that war. BBC may have been biased in that documentary. There may have been some bias, either an individual bias, a filmmaker bias. I don't know what other biases there are, but like I said earlier, documentaries are not required or guaranteed to be 100% accurate. I think what I can take from this in general, and I think that what each and every one of us should take from this, is that we should stop seeing ourselves as ethnic groups, as tribes, and start seeing ourselves as who we are, Nigerians. Yeah. All right. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel for more videos like this. If you liked this one, hit the notification bell so you can get notified whenever I upload a new video. I love you guys so much. Mwah. And I'll see you guys in my next one.